Saturday night at 8 on MPT. Programs on MPT are made possible by our members and the following.
Claim your future through UMBC's new graduate programs in software engineering. Providing modern approaches to software development and implementation, UMBC's faculty is ready to help connect you to resources and opportunities in this in-demand field.
University of Maryland Center for Environmental Science, leading the way on Chesapeake Bay restoration, while guiding our state, nation, and world toward a more sustainable future.
71 acres in downtown Baltimore devoted to learning, discovery, care, and service. We train the professionals who secure the health, well-being, and just treatment of Maryland citizens. We create the knowledge that cures disease and strengthens communities across the state and around the world. UMB makes the world more just, more enlightened, healthier, and more humane. We are UMB.
This program is made by MPT to enrich the diverse communities throughout our state and is made possible by the generous support of our members. Thank you.
Dueling plans for fighting crime.
Prevention, intervention, criminal justice, and rehabilitation.
These are people that need to be incarcerated and put away, and that has become a fundamental disconnect.
Getting out the mail-in vote.
We just want to make sure that the boards of elections can start tabulating those results.
Signature verification is needed.
And should retirees get a tax break?
We are losing a number of our seniors and retirees.
They're not leaving because our tax structure it is not favorable.
For 40 years, connecting Marylanders to their government, this is State Circle.
Good evening. The big story around State Circle this week, a focus on crime. The governor called for action in his State of the State address, and Democratic leaders in the Senate rolled out their crime plan as well. Nancy Amata reports it's a priority for both parties, but with little consensus on what to do.
For the last 2 years, the challenge around violence has been unprecedented in a level that we truly thought was unimaginable and is clearly related to what we've experienced with the COVID-19 pandemic.
Democrats in the Maryland Senate were joined by Attorney General Brian Frosh and chiefs of police from Montgomery and Prince George's counties in a show of unity to address the violence that has overwhelmed police and made residents feel unsafe.
It seems that everywhere we turn, every which way we go, we find a ghost gun, a gun that we cannot trace, a gun that is readily accessible. It's the most sought after weapon.
Commissioner Harrison from Baltimore City reported that while there were 12 ghost guns recovered in crime scenes, crime investigations in 2018, they're on track this year to recover 700. That's astonishing.
Senate President Bill Ferguson believes partnership between the state and local jurisdictions is the way forward.
The fundamental basis of the package that we are announcing, the plan that we're moving forward, are the four corners of reducing violence and creating real safety: prevention, intervention, criminal justice, and rehabilitation.
The legislative package that Democrats are proposing would prohibit ghost guns, establish a gun analytics center, and support warrant apprehension efforts.
The gun center will establish a statewide database to track all crime-related firearms, including the number and type of firearms, the jurisdiction, the source of the firearms, including the importer, dealer, and first purchaser.
The crime package also includes efforts to increase mental health services and keep people from reoffending by offering more wraparound services to those who have done their time and are trying to get back on their feet again.
Democrats control Annapolis with their supermajority. They own the crime policies. They have tried their woke, progressive ideas, and their policies have failed miserably.
Senate Republicans are criticizing Democrats' proposals, saying they don't solve the immediate issue of getting and keeping violent and repeat offenders off the streets. The Republican plan increases penalties for violent offenders.
These are people that need to be incarcerated and put away, and that has become a fundamental disconnect. And you've got the far left has really taken over their caucus, and they are driving Their goal this session is to reduce those sentences and to make it easier for those people to be back out on the streets.
The divide is wide when it comes to how to make Maryland safer. I'm Nancy Yamada for State Circle.
One of the areas targeted under the public safety banner is juvenile justice. Charles Robinson reports the challenge is holding young offenders accountable without jeopardizing their future.
I have been constantly hearing from my detectives after they interview some of these young people as to why, for example, why are they carrying weapons with them? And the answer we often hear is because we know everybody else has one.
It's a vicious cycle, unfortunately, playing out in brazen ways. Experts will tell you we're chasing an elusive target. Many in the system know early signs of problems are predictors of future engagement in the criminal justice system.
The juvenile justice system is complicated. First of all, you got to know that these are young people. But when they're involved in violent crime, the community is demanding justice.
If a child breaks the law, there need to be consequences. And so we are putting forward a package today that takes this approach of we have to first focus on prevention. If that doesn't work, we must intervene. If that doesn't work, we have to hold people accountable, and then we have to rehabilitate them.
We heard a lot of talk about juvenile reform during the House Judiciary Committee.
Portable offenses for juveniles, and especially when they switch schools, so that their record could go with them, so that the administrators could be informed as to what's happening. So simply what this bill does, if the student's arrested, not even arrested, there's a reportable offense that occurs, this would go along with that student if they get transferred to the other school. So the administrators would know.
I'm not asking. Get in the car.
I'm going with you. Let's go.
Oh, we're going to have problems. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I don't want to hear it.
Another area of concern is the interrogation of young people by police.
The Child Interrogation Protection Act, which would afford young people the ability to have an attorney, or the right, really allow them to exercise their right to have an attorney during a custodial interrogation, would also require that the Miranda warnings be revised to be put in terms that young people are likely to understand, and also require that they have their parents notified when they're taken into custody.
Our disagreements with the bill essentially come down to differences about the scope of the perceived problem the bill is trying to address. And yes, in our view, current law and practice do already provide sufficient protection and guarantees to achieve those goals.
We'll watch what happens as all sides try to grapple with no easy solutions. I'm Charles Robinson for State Circle.
State election machinery getting ramped up for the June primary. Mail-in ballot request forms are now on their way to voters. State lawmakers are considering changes to the process, as Sue Copen reports.
Nearly half of all voters in Maryland's 2020 general election voted by mail, in a large part due to the pandemic. But vote by mail is expected to remain popular and increase. Baltimore and Howard County Senator Clarence Lamb says together with the Maryland Association of Election Officials, they're working to make sure all those mail-in votes get counted.
And it was really brought to our attention by them to help make sure that people that submit mail-in ballots have them counted in a timely fashion and with potentially enough time for them to remedy any problems that might exist with those mail-in ballots.
Lamb says the goal is to avoid the problems other states have had with mail-in voting.
We just want to make sure that the boards of elections can start tabulating those results and also notifying people if, for example, they forgot to sign their mail-in ballot or they forgot to complete one field of the ballot, that the boards of elections, once they're opening it up to 8 days before early voting starts, can actually contact those voters and let them know that they can submit a valid ballot if they need to.
Lawmakers are also being asked to require signature validation on mail-in ballot applications as well as the ballot itself. Washington County Delegate Neil Parrott's bill would do just that.
Someone requests a vote by mail ballot, we're going to make sure that we validate that signature. And if not, we're going to contact the person. The bill has it, the Board of Elections will contact the person and find out what's wrong. Maybe they broke the right arm and they signed it with their left hand or something. And there's a reasonable reason, and we still want to get that person to vote. But we don't want to send that person a ballot if it's really not that person.
Right now, 34 states and the District of Columbia require some kind of signature validation. Maryland is not one of them. Common Cause Maryland's executive director, Joan Antoine, says signature validation may well be in Maryland's future.
I would say as an organization, obviously, we recognize that, especially as we're looking at states that have put vote by mail programs in place, signature verification is needed. But here in Maryland, I'd say, as of right now, Common Cause, we don't think it's something we need to move forward with at the moment.
But Antoine says she is hoping lawmakers will act this session to make sure election judges are protected from any potential harm which other states have had to deal with.
You know, folks being threatened, judges walking away from their jobs, people being targeted. It's just, one, you're not paid enough to even put yourself at risk in that way. But even if you were, right, what protections do we have in place to ensure that these people who are doing the critical job of, I'd argue one of the more critical jobs of overseeing our elections in our democracy, that they are protected and safe.
In Annapolis, I'm Sue Copen for State Circle.
Joining us this week for the Annapolis Face-Off, Senator Steve Hershey, Republican from the Upper Shore, and Senator Shelley Heddleman, a Democrat from Baltimore County. Thank you both for being here. The governor gave a state address this week. I just wanted to start with your overall impressions of the speech, and I was going to start with a senator whose initials are SH, if that helps.
That doesn't help.
I thought it was a very positive speech on behalf of the governor. He was able to speak of the many successes that he's had over the last 7 years. I think he was able to be, somewhat boastful of the way that the pandemic has been handled. I think as we're seeing right now, the numbers have dramatically declined. It's been a tough road to get where we are with respect to that, but a lot of tough decisions were made on the governor's part. And I think, again, he's touted some of those. He's also very clear that we need to move forward from the pandemic. And I think he said, let's not allow the pandemic to continue to dictate how we live our lives. And that's a critical part of this as well. I think he was convincing with his budget. The budget that's coming out right now, fortunately, there's a fair amount of money in there based on some very good financial decisions that he and his administration have made over a number of years. And as a result of that, hopefully we're going to see some reductions to retirement tax incomes and some other, very important things for the state of Maryland. So overall, I think he did an excellent job and very, very positive.
Senator Heddleman, your perspective.
I think he did a good job laying out where Maryland has been over the past couple of years, and where, I wish he would have done a little bit better job in where we're going. I think we can do better and we can be better. And so I think while I'll give him great kudos on a number of aspects of how he approached the pandemic, I wish that we didn't have to have it front and center anymore. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to dictate that, as we've seen over the past few months dealing with Omicron. So I think we need to continue to do all we can to invest in our healthcare system, to make sure that our citizens are safe, to make sure that we have a strong economy, and that we are out there looking at how the pandemic is affecting each and every one of us, and making sure we have the policies in place to be the strongest we can coming out of this.
Senator, let me pick up on the making sure our communities are safe, because the governor talked about crime, particularly gun crime. He said bills in previous sessions that haven't advanced, although the Senate has agreed with some and the House has not. I'm curious about the politics of this in an election year. Baltimore City, homicide problem. Baltimore County, increasingly serious homicide problem. Legislators can go back to those communities and say that we've taken steps on police brutality and police corruption, but are constituents going to want to hear that something has been done to make communities safer?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's why you're going to see us looking at ghost guns. The number of guns that are being able to be ordered through the mail, for example, at Magruder High School in Montgomery County just a few weeks ago, a teenager there ordered an untraceable. I mean, we shouldn't be able to order guns and put them together like we do Legos. That's just not okay. So I think, as you may have heard yesterday, the Attorney General and Senate leadership came out talking about how we want to make sure that we get a handle on that, because we're seeing them here in Maryland and we're seeing those incidents grow. We also want to invest in law enforcement, like the governor said, and we want to make sure that our state systems like parole and probation, which have seen real vacancies, are doing their jobs to do the oversight of the folks who are frankly, under state monitoring and are released, and making sure that those folks who have the support they need to be able to be successful making the transition out. And finally, I think we're going to find some common ground on some of the judicial transparency issues that the governor laid out. So we look forward to working with him on some of them.
Senator Hershey?
I think this conversation about ghost guns is a distraction. The individuals that are committing these crimes up there in Baltimore City have an arsenal of weapons at their disposal. It's not ghost guns that are being parts of these crimes. Governor is right. We need an immediate need to send repeat violent offenders, get them off the streets. He's had legislation in, and we have supported for the past number of years to arrest more, prosecute more, and sentence more. Those are the components that he's talked about. Certainly there's short-term issues that we have to deal with. There's long-term issues as well too. And I think Senator Hedelman mentioned some of those, and I think we are all in favor of trying to work on some community programs, some better education, job development, job creation. That's important too, but there's an immediate need right now to get violent offenders off the streets.
Can I just jump in one thing here? So I don't think we're going to arrest our way out of this problem, right? We mass incarceration has done over the past many decades. At the same time, I think, look, the governor is an executive. He has the wherewithal and the power, and I wish he would show the leadership in bringing all of the essential partners together, the local, the municipal, the state law enforcement folks, the mayors, and sit around the table, and our federal partners, and bring the resources to bear to really look at what are the structural things that we can do to address the problems. We have 6,000 vacancies in our workforce now. We have the wherewithal. We could be doing more. And I know for our part in the legislature, I think we're going to be able to work together and put those resources where they should be.
I wanted to pick up on the tax cut issue. The governor talking about retirees, making it easier for them to stay in Maryland. I don't think I've heard specifics yet. The state does not tax Social Security. Neighboring Pennsylvania does not tax pension income. But of course, these days, fewer people have traditional pensions. Should there be some tax relief for retirees, and what should it look like?
I'd say without question, Jeff, we are losing a number of our seniors and retirees to other states that have much more favorable tax laws with respect to retirement income and pension income. And let's keep in mind what these retirees are due to, especially out in rural counties. I mean, these are the backbone of our volunteers for different groups that we have out there, our fire departments, our hospice care, all these types of things that we don't pay government with government funds for these types of services are usually handled by our retirees. And unfortunately, we're losing them. And it's very clear that when people leave the state of Maryland is a great state. I mean, there's so many beautiful places here, but at the end of the day, it comes to their wallets, and they're finding out that there are other states that are just more favorable to that.
Senator Hedelman, I'm short on time, but you probably know some people who spend 183 days in Florida and then come back to Maryland to avoid state taxes.
I do, but you know what? I think that's a false argument. Mostly when people are leaving the state and retiring, you know why they leave? They leave to be closer to family. They're not leaving because our tax structure is not favorable to them. Of course, I know folks who spend a chunk of time away, but I asked our independent bipartisan Department of Legislative Services about this retirement tax proposal in the governor's budget, and it's not targeted at all. It covers all income. So if somebody sells stocks and bonds, they're not going to have to pay taxes on it. I'm not sure that's how we want our tax money to go to support. It shouldn't be a system that's rigged to help the wealthy. We absolutely should look at our seniors and kind of their tax burden, but we need to do it carefully.
Afraid we have to leave it there. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As Maryland begins Black History Month, the Benjamin Banneker Douglas Museum in Annapolis is unveiling a painting depicting Banneker and Andrew Ellicott. Ellicott, a surveyor from what we now know as Ellicott Mills, was originally asked to lay out a new city for the United States. Instead, he recommended Banneker, his apprentice, for the job. The pair are shown mapping out the streets of Washington, D.C. You can see the ceremony in person this Saturday or watch online. Now the CIAA basketball tournament is drawing near. Here's MPT's Jim Hunter.
Thanks, Jeff. For a deeper dive into the CIAA conference, let's go to Mark Gray with Smash Entertainment's HBCU Sports Nation. Mark is standing by with the CIAA Commissioner, Jackie McWilliams.
So why Baltimore? Why now?
Yeah, so I say, why not Baltimore? And why maybe we were too late, too long? I mean, they came and they bid. They put in a great proposal. I think the stories that they told in the process, but how they wanted to include us in the history, like we're about tradition, leadership, and community. And what a better place to take Black tourism to a city that has that same type of sentiment and support. The state is behind this, the city's behind it, the locals are behind it. And so I think it's a really great opportunity for us to bridge the entire community like we've never had before. And not that we couldn't have done it here. I think when you're in a place for a long time, people get comfortable and they settle in. And it's really hard to get people to think differently on what your vision is to try. So I do believe the reset in Baltimore was perfect. And what they brought to the table was impressive to the board. A different building than we've been in, Mark, but at the end of the day, I always say, if we were playing in my basketball, if you love CIAA, you'll come to the game. And so we'll make it, we're going to make it we're going to make it ours and for these student athletes, because ultimately that's what we're there for.
So is there a sense that when you left Charlotte that, you've been taken for granted for a minute?
I don't know if it's that. I just think, again, like if you've been in a long-term relationship, and I hate to make that analogy, I think sometimes you got to do things to spark it again. And we did when we did the 6-year deal. There was some new things that were brought. We were able to clean up some processes and manage the hotel community and all those other things. I think, just in this time, they just got outbid. I think what Baltimore brought to the table was very different than what Norfolk and what Charlotte brought, and it really gave the board an opportunity to evaluate ourselves differently. They hit every area that was important to us. The branding, taking part in the branding and the marketing, obviously the public safety, which I think Charlotte did a good job in helping us managing that. The communications plan and them being engaged in helping us with the stories, not just us doing it. I mean, if you've been in Baltimore, you'll see that signage has been up now for 2 months. Like, how wonderful is that?
So where do you fall on the name, image, and likeness thing? I mean, you just said that you like people got to start understanding, their value or what have you. At the Division II level, how will that impact you guys?
Mark, I wish that I would have been making some money when I was an athlete. I mean, and I would tell you, we talked about this early on. I was on the Board of Governors Committee for this conversation. And I've always thought that we owned our own name, image, and likeness.
Thank you so much. And Jeff, let's send it back to you.
Now for the political roundtable this week, MPT's Charles Robinson is joined by Bryn Stoll of the Baltimore Sun. Gentlemen, thanks for being here. I guess the big news of the week was the scheduled news of the week, the governor's State of the State address.
The governor has been doubling down on the items he wants as he leaves office. Probably the big one, Brent, is this whole idea of getting tough on crime. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Obviously, crime has been a major issue in the state, especially in Baltimore and in the suburbs. For several years now, and the governor has continued to try to, several years in a row now, try to make sort of political hay of it is one way to look at it, or press what he considers solutions to that, package of sentencing enhancements for certain firearms offenses that have stalled in the legislature before. I don't know that there's necessarily going to be much more new momentum this year, but he's stumped for that. He's also pushing some public safety funding, which he's trying to brand as quote unquote refund the police, kind of a swipe at the activist defund the police slogan from a couple of years ago. And of course,
but were the police ever defunded to any degree in Maryland? There was a little bit of movement towards sending people with social services backgrounds on calls that didn't require a police officer.
Correct. Yeah. So a lot of Democratic critics of Hogan are very quick to point out that a couple of jurisdictions in Maryland considered minor cuts very briefly, but basically essentially no agency in the entire state really suffered any kind of real funding cut. In fact, across the board, there's been law enforcement have seen their budgets continue to rise over the last couple of years.
Very quickly, Jeff. The Democrats have pushed back against the governor on this, and Brent and I were at a major press conference where they laid out a series of bills to kind of reinforce the idea that we've got a different way to go forward. Probably the most interesting thing I caught this week was the Republican caucus has now put forward their own agenda, and it kind of mirrors what the governor has.
What's on the agenda?
A lot about, getting tough on gun crimes. In other words, longer sentences. In addition to that, they want to put in place some transparency as relates to the judiciary, because they believe that's part of the problem, because a number of the criminal element is being let out sooner.
That's actually something I want to look at in a future week, the judicial transparency question. Before we go, Bryn, I understand you've been hanging around the block or reporting on the block or something like that.
Yeah, so certainly any of your viewers in Baltimore may have heard, the infamous block in downtown Baltimore, the sort of risque adult entertainment strip right next to City Hall and police headquarters. Several Baltimore lawmakers are targeting it for an early closing time, claiming that it's a drain on police manpower. The block businesses are hitting back on that, saying we're necessarily no worse than rowdy bars anywhere else in the city, and that's unfair. So I have a story in the upcoming This Weekend Sun looking at the history of efforts by various mayors over 5-6 decades now to shut down the block and how it's managed to hang on.
All right, so people can pick up a copy of the Baltimore Sun or look at baltimoresun.com. Maybe the news boxes on Baltimore Street might be empty. We'll see. Bryn and Charles, thank you, gentlemen. Have a good weekend. And that is State Circle for this week. Join us every week at this time as we bring the State House to your house. Join us Monday for Direct Connection, your chance to ask the experts. That's Monday evening, live at 7. Now, for all of us at MPT, thanks for watching and have a good night.
We at Sage Policy Group recognize that this is a challenging period for households and businesses. But Marylanders are intelligent, strong, inventive, and entrepreneurial. Eventually, this economy will bounce back stronger than ever.
Salisbury University educates tomorrow's professionals with graduate programs to advance your career. Earn your master's online in business, nursing, or GIS. Study social work online or at Satellites in Hagerstown, Cecil, Southern Maryland, and the Midshore. Learn more at salisbury.edu.
71 acres in downtown Baltimore devoted to learning, discovery, care, and service. We train the professionals who secure the health, well-being, and just treatment of Maryland citizens. We create the knowledge that cures disease and strengthens communities across the state and around the world. UMB makes the world more just, more enlightened, healthier, and